Hello, hello out there, fellow humans of Earth. Take two. I was having some connection issues the first time. Anyway, thank you for joining me here. Good morning to my West Coasters. Good afternoon to my East Coasters. Good night to my Europeans. No matter where you're at, if you're tuning in, thank you so much for doing so. Wanted to go live here on my phone because I want to interact with some comments, take some Q&As. You know, those videos I've been doing lately of the live QD codes, basically. I can't really interact with the chat, so I'll be doing this from my phone here, maybe once a week, maybe more than that, to do what we could call a live video cast. We'll talk about what's going on, and we can have some fun and do some Q&A and whatnot. So anyway, the topics that I want to discuss here in this one, we'll be talking about Trump's 4th of July party in D.C. that he announced the other day. That sounds like it's going to be a really good time. We'll be talking about that. The Oscars. I'll tell you how much I did not watch it, at least, and then we can talk about things I heard from it, though. Really weird stuff going on in Hollywood. We'll talk about vaccines, of course, very big topic, a lot of propaganda out there about vaccines, and we'll talk about the FDA, the commissioner's recent comments about cracking down on states that don't change their, quote, lax anti-vaccine laws, exemption laws, weird stuff there. The FDA is also cracking down on the supplement industry too. So that's very important to discuss. And we'll also be talking about the Space Force, the new Space Force directive that was signed, and 5G as well. A lot to discuss by way of 5G. I'll be doing a lot more work coming up on that. Probably on the boards, show you some things, some science that I've been researching, and how in fact 5G is definitely not good for us, and how we can avoid it, avoid 5G, 4G, Wi-Fi, all the electrosmog that harms us. So, a lot to discuss here in this one. A few things I want to get to before we get to all of those topics, though. A few things I want to announce. Number one is that for those of you waiting for more Orgonite on my website, I will have some up within the next day or two. So more Orgonite will be up on there. You can sign up to get notified of that on my newsletter on my website, jordansather.com. So more Orgonite. Shout out to Tia for making them. Tia, thank you so much. I'll link her Facebook down below. She goes live quite often and shows you the process that she makes them with. It's pretty neat. She supplied this line that I'll be putting up on my website. And also, Tia does a lot of work in the vaccine truth community as well. Her website is vaxhoax.com. And again, I'll link that, a bunch of different things in the description down below, but vaxhoax.com. Good information on there to learn about those topics. And then also shout out to Brandon from Third Eye Oregon too. He supplied a few of the pieces I'll be putting up as well. So Brandon from Third Eye Oregon, I'll link his Instagram below. And for those of you asking about Ormus as well, I'll have the Ormus back up on my website. I took it down for a little bit because I was having some shipping issues, but that'll be back up within the next week or two. And then I got a lot more stuff cooking by way of things to put up on my website, things to offer like that. So I'm very excited for all of that. And then also shout out to Ramona Campbell. Ramona Campbell, she sent me sweet hat and shirts. You know, I think a couple of videos ago I said if anybody wants to send me things, I'll shout it out in a video, no problem. Say your name and I'll, post a link to whatever you want below it. She sent me these. Q, plan to save the world. Joe M will be happy. He'll be happy I got a couple of these. Definitely rock those. And shout out to Matthew Fredericky. Hope I'm getting your last name right, man. Matthew. He is an artist out of Colorado. He sent me this. Sweet, psychedelic-like art. He sent me a print of his work. Very Alex Gray-like. And I like Alex Gray's stuff. So thank you, Matthew. I met him in Colorado last August at the Dimensions of Disclosure conference there. And really cool dude. Makes really neat art. So there's those. And I'll link his Instagram below as well. So there we go. Yes, very cool of everybody to do that. Absolutely. So you send me neat things, and I have no problem saying thank you on a video for it. So now let's get into talking what we got going on in the news. Let's talk about that 4th of July event going on in Washington, D.C. Trump announcing this in a tweet yesterday saying that he's going to give an address from the Lincoln Memorial there. I think he even mentioned fireworks and a bunch of other things. And I'm excited for this one. I'm even maybe looking at going. Puts me in a pickle though. I already had plans that 4th of July weekend. I had a conference that I was invited to go to. That's James Gilliland's ECETI conference that he holds every year there out at his ranch near Mount Adams in Washington State. I got invited to go to that, and I'm definitely going to go. You know, it's one of my favorite conferences to do every year just because of great space, out at a ranch, looking at the mountain, craft in the sky, wonderful people there. It's really neat time. But this whole DC thing, like, it's something I feel like I can't miss. With the 11/11 event last year, you know, when that was supposed to be a thing and then got pushed back or canceled, I really didn't get the intuitive hit to go. You know, I did end up going to Washington, D.C. for 11/11 under different circumstances, but I didn't really get that, like, oh, I need to go to this one, or it was, you know, the context of it all, the timing of it all was weird to me. And then it ended up getting pushed back for whatever reason. But this one, with it being on the 4th of July and with us, you know, with the whole plan proceeding along much further now than it was a year ago, could be a lot of big things that happen between now and then. That's, what do we have? March, April, May, June, 4 months. So 4th of July, what could we have in 120 days that might make that be a much bigger celebration than people are realizing that it could be, you know? So I feel like I need to go to this one somehow, some way. I just looked at the calendar this morning, and the 4th of July is on Thursday, so I'm thinking I might be able to get in there for that and then zip out and jet to James's ranch for the ECETI gig that weekend. So that might be what I do, but I think it's going to be big. The 4th of July there, Lincoln Memorial. You know, I'm a distant relative. I'm like a super distant relative of Abraham Lincoln, and if Trump's going to be addressing the crowd from the Lincoln Memorial, I think I need to go. So there's that, and then Vietnam trip today. So today, Donald Trump's going to Vietnam, and 3 days ago in Q's posts, Q was referencing that time in December when the Air Force One call sign was basically Q+, you know, Q+ referencing, meaning Donald Trump in Q speak. So Q referencing that Q proof, saying Vietnam trip coming. That was in the drop from 3 days ago, Vietnam trip coming. So check out Air Force One's call sign today. That's what I would say to do. You know, for you, what they call on the chans, and I don't mean this pejoratively, but it's just chan speak. Plane fags, for you plane fags out there, Air Force One's call sign. I wonder what it's going to be today. Or if we get some sort of Q proofs during this whole event. Q sort of gave us the weekend off, which was nice. It was funny though, yesterday I tweeted, "Thanks for giving us the weekend off, Q," at like 10 in the morning, and they posted 7 minutes later. I was like, no, ain't happening. That was one of those Q+ posts we got yesterday too. Donald Trump dropping us a line there through Q's drops whenever we see that Q+. So that was funny yesterday, but nothing too new by way of those drops. A little bit of stuff on Bill Maher, which was intriguing. That guy's weird. That guy's really weird. But in terms of Q, you know, in regards to Q, touching on that, one thing I have seen lately, the past few days, we'll say, maybe 48, 72 hours, is that a lot of these mainstream media journalists are really trying to attack the whole QAnon idea hard and call it violent and call it basically bloodthirsty, like call Q a cult and a bloodthirsty cult where people who follow it or believe in it are a bunch of violent, angry people. I'm seeing mainstream journalists on Twitter, especially some blue check markers, and the mainstream journalists that are always tasked to discredit Q and discredit conspiracy theories. I'm seeing them on Twitter trying to create this echo chamber. And they're all posting the stories of like the alleged Pizzagate shooter and the supposed crazy guy who drove onto the Hoover Dam, and then the, again, supposed story of the guy in Seattle that slashed his brother up for thinking he was a lizard. And, you know, all these stories that are highly fabricated. They're highly fabricated and psyoped, you know, psyoped, call them false flags in a general term. But these are all fabricated stories that the mainstream media uses in their psychological operations, their psychological warfare, to paint the movement as violent and as bloodthirsty and whatever the case, when you just got to see their mind games for what they're playing. So I'm really Eyes open, eyes open, as Q says, see something, say something. There's all those uh, posters we see in airports, see something, say something. I'm really eyes open for any sort of false flag, any sort of story. Again, any kind of, call it a, not a hoax per se, but false flag, an event that occurs that is painted a different way in the media than it actually is, that they try to use to brainwash us for their propaganda. And hope no false flag occurs. So be careful out there, guys. And if you do share information on Twitter or YouTube or Facebook or whatever the case, do it in a positive manner, not a violent manner. Don't do it in a way that could give them ammunition to paint the movement or you or QAnon or whatever the case as negative. So, because this is not for any sort of violence. It's actually this whole movement, this great awakening, is for the end of violence. It's for us to expose the folks on our planet who are committing the violent acts and then brainwashing all of us to commit violent acts, So it's pretty sick. It's pretty sick. I saw some people just comment, insidious bastards. Yeah, it's very sick and disturbing that these people in the mainstream media, a few of them, sick individuals themselves, they want to lie. Many of them just brainwashed, and they're so caught up in their ego that they just can't get past their belief system blocks, and they literally believe what they're fed, and then they have no problem painting Q followers as violent or Q as a conspiracy theory or ragging on conspiracy theories in general because they're just so brainwashed themselves. It's kind of like the idea of mainstream doctors in our world. 98% of them are well-intentioned. They're just misinformed. Even doctors, even physicists, even, many professionals out there. They're well-intentioned. They're just misinformed. They're brainwashed. And 2% of them, though, sick people. You got Dr. Richard Pan, a California state senator who's shilling for vaccine companies for sure. Dr. Paul Offit. You got all sorts of the 2% of doctors out there just brainwashed, or actually sick people. 98% well-intentioned, just brainwashed. Much like I see mainstream journalism. 2-3% of them, there's a certain percent of them that are lying to the public. They know they're lying. They're what we call conscious deceivers. And then we have the useful idiots, the majority out there that are just, unfortunately, a little bit caught up by what's going on in their belief systems. Q just posted, somebody said, well, shoot, I got to turn on my Wi-Fi here on my laptop and check it out then. So let's do that. But that, me going into that tangent of Big Pharma, Q did just drop. Patton Oswalt tweets from 2013 where it says, I am a proud pedophile. That's weird. Another tweet from 2013 from Patton Oswalt. My dong is super friendly and loves getting rubbed by children. Hashtag career-ending Twitter typos. Q says, who will be the next to fall post-Weinstein? Big name coming? Nah. That, Hollywood might be a little scared there. That's probably why there was so much Trump bashing at the Oscars last night. Ooh, what should we talk next? Oscars or Big Pharma? We'll talk Oscars for a quick sec. So it won't take me long, and then we'll get to that whole vaccine FDA stuff. But in terms of the Oscars, did you watch it? Because I didn't watch a minute of it. I totally didn't realize it was on until, all these award shows, the Emmys, the Oscars, the whatever the case. I never even realized that they're on until the day of, and I start seeing stuff on Twitter for it. So I don't even know, but I did see some things on Twitter about it. I didn't watch it, but I saw some stuff from it. Macaulay Culkin, did you see him tweet that Rami Malek eats babies? There, I said it. That's what he said in his tweet. Rami Malek eats babies. There, I said it. I didn't realize who Rami Malek was until I Googled him, and he's the Mr. Robot dude. So he's the guy who plays Mr. Robot, and then he did some Freddie Mercury impersonation in some recent movie. That's a weird tweet. Macaulay Culkin is kind of a, odd character himself. It's this whole Hollywood scenario. We have so many people in Hollywood that they just come from abusive networks, and It's just sort of like a whirlpool. It's like a black hole of people who are trying to get out of it but can't, and they get caught up in it. And then, you know, again, it's that like idea of there's a small percentage of people who are actually sick bastards, and then the majority of them have done, you know, bad things. They might be well-intentioned here and there, but they're just like caught up in it, and they can't stop. And they can't stop for money or power or fame or whatever the case. And, you know, we need courageous people in all regards. We need courageous people that are in the Hollywood thick of it, that are in the big pharma thick of it, that are in the military industrial complex thick of it, that need to come forth as whistleblowers and put their stories, their information, the stuff out there. So, of course, stay safe doing so. I know a lot of people can't because it would put them in compromising situations, but as much as we can, have courage to start exposing those 2 to 3% that are the sick bastards at the top of all the hierarchies there. So anyway, saw Macaulay Culkin tweet that, and then a lot of people were wearing ridiculous things, like the most, just why even would you wear that? But one woman was wearing all these white rabbits. She had this big long dress with like white rabbit stuffed animals. You know, who the heck makes this sort of stuff up? But wearing that on, it's like in plain sight. Symbolism will be these people's downfall, right? So when you understand the symbolism, when you understand symbolism in general, what it's all about, shines a bright light on what they're doing with their symbolism, and what, you know, in your day-to-day life, all the symbolism around you that you aren't even really noticing. You know, a lot of people going through their daily lives doing ritualistic, symbolic things, they don't even realize it. So when you study symbolism and when you study these sort of occult here not meaning negative or evil or demonic, but occult just meaning hidden, you know, Latin for hidden, occultare. When you study occult things, it shines a light on the negative practices of what we could call the dark occult elite, okay? So, yeah, weird stuff. White rabbit dresses, I mean, come on. And then, yeah, typical Trump bashing. Typical Trump bashing at all these award events by people there taking their 2 minutes just to put forth some stupid talking points that they didn't even think up themselves. So there's that, my thoughts on the Oscars. Never mention that again on this channel, the Oscars. Now let's talk about vaccines and the FDA. So this is, of course, a huge topic out there. Very important one is the reality behind vaccines and deconstructing all the propaganda, fear-based propaganda that we're being fed about vaccines. And the new narratives, the latest breaking BS that we're getting from the mainstream media in regards to that is the FDA commissioner, Scott Gottlieb, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but the FDA commissioner was saying the federal health agencies might have to step in if states don't change their, quote, lax vaccine laws. Lax vaccine laws. And this is insane. Like, this is fascism in action. Are you even going to be able to make your own choices for your body? Health freedom, is that going to be a thing in our country? I think it should be, you know, because these vaccines, they are much more dangerous than we're led to believe and much less effective than we're led to believe. So that's scary, the FDA commissioner saying that. And not just that, but a couple of weeks ago, the FDA sent warning letters and was making statements. The FDA commissioner went on CNN and said these things. He said the FDA is also cracking down on the supplement industry. They sent 12 warning letters out to various companies that they were claiming to be illegally marketing and making unproven claims about their products. Now, in terms of the supplement industry, yes, there's a lot of clickbait out there about supplements and, you know, natural remedies. That's natural with the state of the, you know, dollar-based system that we have. People will kind of clickbait like that, but they just can't help it. But there are also a lot of supplements out there that are wonderful remedies, medicines, and this has been going on for a long time, and that the FDA it uses the bad apples to crack down on the good apples. They say, oh, these ones out here are making clickbait claims, so let's crack down on these guys over here that are actually creating some great stuff. I've seen this firsthand. I have seen companies who are making fantastic supplements, fantastic medicines, we can call them, get cracked down on, get basically litigated out of commission. You know, the FDA will sue them so much that the small little company can't pay its lawyer fees and ends up having to go bankrupt and quit. So I've seen the FDA do this, and it's happened for a long, long time. But now the FDA commissioner on CNN said, that's why today we are announcing a new plan for policy advancements with the goal of implementing one of the most significant modernizations, quote, whatever modernizations means, of dietary supplement regulation and oversight in more than 25 years. So if, you know, the FDA has been doing what it's doing for 25 years, and now we're going to get a next wave, a next modernization, as they're calling it, of regulation and oversight. This is, you know, I'd be very apprehensive to what they mean by that. And man, if only Trump would, you know, because he's tweeted, Donald Trump has tweeted about vaccines before, questioning them, making connections between vaccines and neurodevelopmental dysfunction such as autism. Trump has kind of openly questioned the standard that vaccines are held to before. I wish Trump would just send one tweet about vaccines and just questioning it, just throwing it out there for public, to get that into the public conversation, because this is getting ridiculous how these states are starting to come down on fascist medical practices, on mandatorizing, if that's a word, mandatorizing these sorts of things that are harmful. So just one tweet, man. The FDA and the CDC, and also with GMOs too, you know, that's a huge topic out there. The whole idea of our food system, big agriculture, big pharma, all these, the revolving door between them all, the just sick incestuous connections between these sorts of industries. I pray that Q team, Trump, my hat's behind the scenes, will do more to combat all of them. And I think it will happen, you know, but I await the day where it becomes more public. So that's what I have to say about vaccines and the whole crackdown on supplement industry. Now let's talk about the Space Force. So Trump recently signing the Space Force directive calling for the creation of a Space Force and placing the new service temporarily under the Department of the Air Force with intention to eventually become its own branch. So it's still going to be under the Air Force's oversight, essentially. In the meantime, it looks like, you know, the Trump administration reenacted the Space Force Combatant Command as like a push to bring the Space Force into its own branch. And it's like the administration is pushing hard. They're pushing hard for the Space Force, despite all the opposition that's out there. So we have a lot of politicians that have voiced opposition. There's people within, say, the Air Force and the Pentagon that have voiced opposition. There's a lot of bureaucratic red tape they're having. There's a tough time they're having to move it through. The Air Force Secretary even leaked a memo, however, you know, whatever memo it was, saying that, oh, the Space Force is going to cost $13 billion. It was like a purposeful leak of that memo to kind of get people questioning Space Force. But then Patrick Shanahan, the acting DOD head, he came out and said, no, it's really only going to cost like between $3 and $5 billion, and that's over the course of 5 to 10 years or so. So it's like there's a subtle info war about this Space Force being waged, and some people against it, some people for it. But the Trump administration really seems to be pushing it forward, and the fact that we have Patrick Shanahan, Mr. Boeing, ex-VP of Boeing there, as still the acting head of the DOD there, leads me to believe that Space Force is really key to all of this going on. As Q said, space is coming back in a big way, and Q's also mentioned space programs outside of public domains. So that also leads me to believe that, yes, the Trump administration and Q team do know about, obviously, if they have it all, they have the NSA at their disposal, and they're figuring out, they're listening in, they're tapping in on phone conversations and records, and et cetera, et cetera. They're figuring out where these programs are located, where, these information and technologies are being held, who has what, essentially. That's what this Space Force looks like to me. It looks like the way that the Trump administration, the white hats, patriots behind the scenes, are creating a way that they can gain oversight, public oversight, not just private oversight, but public oversight over the secret space programs that have been in existence for, 40, 50, 60 years. Who knows how many, what, and where now. Trillions of dollars missing from the Pentagon, remember. What has that gone to build? So with the Space Force, creating a way to gain oversight, gain access, control these programs, and then begin maybe disclosing them or bringing various truths to the public by way of that. So, big stuff. A lot of stuff there. A lot of videos I'm going to be doing in the future about these topics. One on the Space Force, because it's a very long conversation. One on 5G, too. I want to get to 5G right now. If you guys have any more questions on the Space Force stuff, space technologies, how I see things, you can let me know. But in terms of 5G, Trump tweeting in support of 5G really made a lot of people question, me too. What is the angle here? We know there's a lot of multi-dimensional, game theory stuff going on. What's the strategy behind Trump tweeting in support of 5G? 5G is something where we know it's harmful. There's a lot of research out there showing it's harmful. 5G, pulsed millimeter wave frequencies in gigahertz bands that harm our DNA, harm our biological meat suits here, and who knows what it will do to wildlife in our biosphere. Now, what do I have to say about this? So first of all, I want to talk about the optics of it. So does Trump tweeting his support for 5G or putting his support for 5G in a tweet mean he's actually for it? Or is there something deeper going on here? If Trump tweeted negatively against 5G and was against it, of course, that would be bad for many different things. It would upset a whole telecom industry. It wouldn't be so good for the economical component of it there, and it might give the mainstream media a way to attack him or something in that way, shape, or form. So he can't really tweet against it. If he tweets for it, it's not alienating the whole huge telecom industry. But at the same time, he's getting 5G into the conversation. Like, that's him tweeting about 5G. It's getting into that public conversation there. Now, I've seen a lot of people claim that, well, maybe the Trump administration or they have some sort of way of making 5G positive or not harm us or something that way. And that doesn't seem logical to me, because no matter who has control of 5G, it's going to be harmful. It doesn't matter if Deep State flips the switch or Trump flips the switch. It's harmful technology. We are talking about 5G, same thing as 4G. It's harmful electromagnetic frequencies, Wi-Fi. These are all, pulse millimeter wave, transverse wave type electrosmog, we could call it. It's not healthy. But that gets into the idea of controlling it, right? Because this gets into the idea of like nuclear warheads. Back in the 50s and 60s, the Soviet Union was building nukes, so it was either America also built nukes to have them, or it was become the underdog. So with 5G, what I possibly see happening is that the Trump administration wants to gain control over 5G because China's doing it, other people around the world are doing it. So why not gain the upper hand in it, control 5G, so they can have control of the off switch, right? So then they can say, okay, great, we have control over 5G, we're going to not turn it on, and we're going to start bringing out some sort of other technologies, other forms of communication that don't utilize 5G. What do I mean by that? Okay, I mean quantum communication systems. Remember that Quantum Initiative Act that Donald Trump signed a few weeks ago? That's what we should be looking at, okay? It's not like 5G is going to be turned harmless, or we're going to be able to use 5G in some way that doesn't harm us. It's let's gain control of 5G so we can turn it off and then bring forth quantum communication systems, communication systems that don't utilize transverse waves, millimeter pulsed wave frequencies. And some people are already saying 6G, like maybe 6G is that advanced technology is not going to harm us. If 4G and 5G harm us, 6G is just going to like fry us like an egg. It's not about G's, you know. Again, it's like this whole set of science over here. Some people call it quantum communication, quantum teleportation. I don't really like to call it quantum. It's kind of a buzzword. 1111 here, make a wish. I don't like to call it quantum as much as, you know, it's difficult to talk about this sort of physics. We're talking Nikola Tesla type physics. We're talking zero-point energy torsion physics. You know, again, call it quantum if you want, but it's a whole set of physics that's outside of public domain. So, for instance, when Nikola Tesla was describing that a cell phone, what some people think was a cell phone, in his quote from 1926, go look it up really quick if you're not familiar with it. Nikola Tesla was basically describing what looked like a cell phone, but the way Nikola Tesla was describing it, the cell phone he was envisioning was not the cell phones that we have now that have to be connected to this electromagnetic grid to send bits through a linear stream. What Nikola Tesla was describing 80, 90 years ago was much like the wireless electricity transmission that he was creating, in that he could send electricity from this tower to this tower using the etheric substrate, using the ether. So the electricity could go point to point. He didn't need his towers hooked up to like a Wi-Fi emitter to be able to go through, you know, be sent linearly. He was using the ether to send a whole packet of electricity from point to point. So in terms of what we could have now, you know, we could have, and I would imagine they have these sorts of devices in the Black projects, these quantum communication devices, where you could have a device in your hand that has a crystal in it, hooked up with a little Tesla coil. It has its own resonant frequency, and then you can send information as a packet to this device over here that also has a little crystal and Tesla coil and has its own resonant frequency. You could send packets of information from device to device, and those devices didn't need to be hooked up to Wi-Fi because they already had the frequency of each encoded into the device. So, and also, you know, the device could power itself and get a little, you know, didn't need to be charged or anything like that. So you're sending packets of information. You're not sending data bit streams like what we have now with 4G or with what 5G would do, right? So again, this is the idea of like quantum systems. We're going point to point because all points in space and time are connected. They're connected with that ether. So this gets me into, you know, sort of along the lines of that Space Force stuff, secret space program technologies. How do those craft travel when they dematerialize and they rematerialize over here? They're going point to point. They're going longitudinally. They're not having to go through space. They're complex stuff. I'm trying to keep it simple. They're going through, you know, point in time. So they're traveling non-locally, point to point. You can do that with bits of information in quantum communication devices, or you can do that with a craft. You're like sending it from point to point. This point in space and time connected to this point in space and time. Okay, so a lot of stuff I'm still wrapping my head around, working at how to relay it as well, because it's difficult with so many different connotations of words. Words are difficult because everybody has different definitions for different words. And there's also, it's difficult because we almost don't have the language to describe a lot of these ideas and concepts. So that's why sometimes they sound so philosophical or sound weird or crazy or whatever the case is, because it is different sort of stuff. But anyway, 5G, I don't think 5G has been turned non-harmful, but what I think the Trump administration could be doing is just trying to gain control of it so they can have an off switch, so they can work at bringing the Black Project technologies out to the public forefront by way of things like the Space Force and the Quantum Initiative Act and things like that. You know, the whole set of physics that's just, you know, it'll make you redesign what you think, what you believe from mainstream science. A lot of BS in mainstream science out there. You know, it's just, you know, just look at who controls our education institutions. Rockefeller Education. Rockefeller Education. And they're the same ones who started controlling the medical systems, Rockefeller Medicine. So just learn your history, guys. Learn your history and you can figure out helps you figure out the BS we're taught. What is the BS? I'm not saying I have the truth of the matter. I'm not saying go to me for all your beliefs and this is how it is. But what I'm saying is I'm good at figuring out the BS, and I'm really passionate and working hard to patch together what is the case now. What reality is, what reality is. It's very fun to do. So I'm at about 10% battery. So why don't we do some questions and whatnot for the last few minutes that I have here. Space and time. Just saw somebody comment about space and time. Space and time is generally described as a sheet of fabric. Fold it, and you theoretically could move faster than the speed of light. A cheat in ways. Sort of. You have the general ideas of it, although I think a lot of people are caught up with Einstein physics, like the theory of relativity, and I don't necessarily vibe with many of the ideas that are proposed that are Einsteinian in nature. There's a lot of great scientists out there that are refuting a lot of Einstein's ideas. And in terms of space and time, it's, I view space-time as like a substrate that is everywhere. It's like the ether, I think of it, or the collective consciousness in a way, the morphogenic field. A lot of different scientists have a lot of different names for it. But there's space-time, and then there's we could call it I don't want to call it a parallel reality or an alternative reality, or it's basically what we could term like the metaphysical world superimposed upon space-time, and that is time-space. And the boundary between the two is the speed of light. So everything around us is material and is moving slower than the speed of light. Once you get past the speed of light, which you can do and which is actually commonplace, it's one thing with mainstream science is they try to teach you that it's difficult to move faster than the speed of light, but there's actually a lot of stuff moving faster than the speed of light right now, and as it moves below the speed of light, it turns into material. But there's a lot of stuff moving faster than the speed of light. For instance, one thing that moves faster than the speed of light, your thoughts. Your thoughts, this whole metaphysical reality, this astral reality of what you could call it, it does move faster than the speed of light. And that's the idea of like the craft I was talking about. That's how these spacecraft moves faster than the speed of light. You get a big capacitor, a big Tesla coil, you counter-rotate electromagnetic fields, and you can make the material of the craft move faster than the speed of light, and that's how it travels non-locally, point to point. So it'd be much better with a big old whiteboard behind me. I could like demonstrate it. I'm planning on doing that here this week with a lot of these concepts and ideas I've been ruminating on in my head. But again, it's very weird, it's very different, but it actually makes a lot of logical sense, like a lot of logical sense. You don't need crap like dark matter. You don't need crap like 5 dimensions, 8 dimensions, 15,000 dimensions. Really, there's only 3 dimensions, 3 of space, 1 of time. That metaphysical reality or that astral world has 3 dimensions of time and 1 of space. If you want to kind of wrap your brain around these ideas, go watch Interstellar. Believe it or not, Interstellar, that movie with Matthew McConaughey, I believe, it was not a bad visual depiction of what time-space, of what that 3D time, 1D space metaphysical reality is like. And that's where you get into probable timelines and all sorts of philosophy science speak like that. My favorite stuff to talk about. Magic, somebody said. Basically, consciousness, thought, our electric universe, forming matter with electricity, making stuff be able to levitate and teleport, for lack of a better term. It's not. They call it magic. It seems like magic, but it's really not magic. It's only magic depending on where your perception's at, how high your consciousness is. If you start practicing remote viewing or things like telepathy, and you start getting good at it, it even starts to freak you out. Like when I tried remote viewing before, and I made a pretty damn close picture. It was one of the first times I ever tried remote viewing, and I made a pretty damn close picture as to what the target I was envisioning, and it was like a sailboat, and I drew it really well, and then I unlocked the picture. I'm like, oh my God, I had that really close. It started to freak me out, man. But that's, of course, it was one of the very first times I did it, and as you get more comfortable with these ideas, it's not really magic. It's just our innate God-given creation and our innate God-given human abilities here and utilizing our consciousness. It's all possible. Why do you think it's not possible? Begin there. Let's see here. What else we got? What else we got? Haha, people talking about dreams. So I don't Discord. Somebody just asked me to come onto the Patriot Soapbox Discord. Discord is one thing I never really got into. As much as some people want to say, I've heard claims out there that I was on Discord chats or something. I think it was Microchip. Remember Microchip? He was Jack Posebek's source for debunking Q. He tried to claim that I was on these like Discord chats. I was a part of the group that started Q. No, I've never been on Discord. I think I downloaded it once and I was like, too much for me to learn right now. And I deleted it. Maybe one of these days. But anyway, on to what was the topic I was about to get onto? Dreams. I've seen over the past day a lot of people mentioning getting just crazy dreams. One person told me her dream was that she was looking up and it was like this mass contact experience, like UFOs started plopping up in the sky all over the world. And she was like dreaming about that reality. It was pretty incredible. And then some people mentioning they're having dreams about a lot of other things in regards to worldly events about to take place. So, I mean, things are getting weird, folks. Things are getting real weird, especially as we progress through this Great Awakening. All of our consciousness starts syncing up, and those probable timelines, the most probable futures, start coalescing into one rather than many. Because as we all focus our intent together, that possible future starts to engrave itself, and we start going down that path. So as a lot of people start waking up, they're figuring out more and more about our reality here, the truth, and they're all focusing on, wow, I just want disclosure, I just want truth and freedom and compassion and things like that. It's just like forcing us down there, and that's opening up a lot of people's brains, their conduit receivers in their skull, right, to these sorts of timelines, these realities. So dream time, dreams are important. That's why Carl Jung studied it for years and years and years. Pretty fascinating things when you start to look at your dreams and the symbology behind your dreams. Again, symbolism. Symbolism is incredible. Not just are you able to decipher the deep state and messages they're sending with symbolism, but you can use it, again, all around you in your own life to enhance yourself in different ways. Let's see. Any chance I'm going to the New Living Expo again this year? Maybe. Depends on the days. I have no plans in the meantime. But I'd like to. It was a good time last year down there in San Mateo, California. Good old hippie gathering. Some of my favorite places to be. Hippie gatherings. Saw the WAPO Q video. Oh, man, I haven't even touched on that. Quite frankly, I haven't even watched the WAPO video yet. And that is on my to-do list today. So I'm going to watch it and film myself watching it. You can see my reaction, and I'll be able to talk as I view it about how I'm viewing it as I view it. And then I'm going to put out some of that raw, unedited interview footage with it. And yeah, just get that over with, you know? Just get that over with. Quite frankly, I haven't watched it. Some people are like, oh my God, you haven't watched it? And I think it took me a few days to watch the Comedy Central thing too. It's just like, I do it, on to the next. It's kind of where my head's at right now. Let's see. I see some people, Antarctica. There's a lot of news blowing up about Antarctica. New supposed, we call them whistleblowers coming forward with their experiences in Antarctica. Military personnel, according to Linda Moulton Howe and I think I saw David Wilcock talking about that too. And then it's crazy. I mean, Antarctica, very important place that we're not really told too much about, right? So I'll be digging into the testimony of those new insiders, and it looks compelling from what I've seen, the superficial stuff I've seen. I haven't dug too much into it, but it looks compelling. So I'm excited to figure more out about what's really going on in Antarctica. But there's already an incredible amount of information you can find on Antarctica that is open source. That's just not, of course, not told to us or taught to us, or the dots aren't connected for us really by anybody out there. Dr. Michael Sala does a lot of great writing on Antarctica. He's dug up a lot of good stuff there. But I mean, you can even take it upon yourself to go onto like Google Earth and skim around Google Earth and find anomalous things in there. Lots of pictures have been found, weird satellite photos of Antarctica. And there's also, over the last few years, there's been a lot of weird waves that have been found emitted. People checking satellite imagery, and like on the Mimic satellite, big wave coming out of Antarctica. This one day, it's like, what the heck? Is there a beam weapon or a HARP ray or something being shot out of Antarctica? And then historical records and what else? Strava maps. Remember those Strava maps that came out? And there were some anomalous things in those Strava maps too. The maps that showed the GPS activity around the world. And you can check those out and see some, you can cross-reference Google Earth, known outposts in Antarctica, and the Strava maps. And there are a couple that are weird that you don't really find any public installations or anything like that for. So lots of stuff out there in the public domain about Antarctica. You just have to find it yourself. And then Ben Fulford. So I see some people mentioning Ben Fulford as well. And according to, I haven't read his newsletter, but from what I've heard other people say have read his newsletter, apparently Ben Fulford was relaying information that he heard about Trump being implicated in some bad stuff and being blackmailed in some way. Now, remember, Ben Fulford just passes along what he hears, and we've got the Washington Post claiming today that one of Trump's former cabinet members claimed that Trump kissed her, and then we have Fulford today. I think there's a lot of information that's coming out of the hive, of the nest of the deep state, from like in a few degrees in, that are getting out through different ways, this disinformation. So I think Ben Fulford's being fed disinformation about Trump. Of course, what the Washington Post is relaying to us about that former cabinet member, I would imagine, is disinformation. And if all this stuff was real, why didn't it come out a long time ago? Why didn't it come out during the election cycle, or a year ago, or 6 months ago? Or, if this stuff actually existed compromising anything on Trump, I don't think he would be in the place that he is in today. I don't think the military would have, or any sort of patriot group on the inside would have selected Trump or had him be doing what he's doing. And I would have expected a lot of this stuff to come out far sooner if it was real. Right, so that's what I have to say about Fulford's report. Again, Fulford just relays what he hears, as like a lot of people do. So you got to be very careful. Let me check my battery. You got to be very careful out there these days, guys, in that you might hear a claim being made in a YouTube video, or somebody doing a decode, or some person making a tweet saying a thing, but what do you actually have to back that up? Even if it's just corroboratory evidence of dots being connected, or actual sourced facts, you just have to do the due diligence. I see a lot of very flimsy claims being made, and people take those claims, those allegations, even though they haven't really been fact-checked, and just running with them. So we are the news now. People keep saying that exactly. We are the news now. So we have to uphold ourselves to journalistic integrity. The mainstream journalists, there is some helpful concepts you can take from mainstream journalism in the kind of, they do source evidence, even though the evidence is fake and made up. That's a whole different thing. That's the ethics of it all. But they do have, they go to journalism school for 4 years, 6 years, whatever. They learn the practice of journalism, and it's very, it's taking me years to learn, and I'm getting better and better at it, making sure that what I say is sourced in nature and differentiating the speculations I have aside from the facts, and then making sure that even if I do have speculations or theories or suggestions, that I connect the dots for it and make it sound legit. So just be sure that what you promote and what you say is legitimate. You know, it's an art. It really is an art. Journalism is an art, and it's skills that you can teach yourself and learn. But there's a lot that goes into it. Same way book writing, you know, if you write a book, you want it to be sourced, don't you? And have a lot of sources and have it make a lot of sense. So you don't make a YouTube video where you make all these claims in a 20-minute video, and much of which are just speculations, and you say these are fact, and then you share that video gets 100,000 views, then you got 100,000 people out there, many of which are probably like, this is fact, and then they keep running with that when that's not the case. When you should have sourced it, evidenced it a little better. Well, cool, guys. I'm about out of battery. Thank you for hanging out with me here for a little while. And I got to get going. Got some other work to do today. I'll be doing this again weekly basis. Like I mentioned, I like being able to read along with the chat.